Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening. Hello, my name is Michael Manicardi. I am a theatre director. I have my own theatre, a 100-seater community theatre in Amsterdam. And I'm very interested in communicating with European alternatives. And I'll tell you what I'm doing at the moment. Obviously, I'm a theatre person, and I believe in theatre as a means of change, how one can implement change. The Greeks were into it, and they used theatre as a means of political change with catharsis. It's a technique of implementing change. You hear people say, I was moved by this, or I was moved by that. But what they actually mean is that their ideas, their perspective was changed by seeing something. The point I'm making is that the reason I want to communicate and cooperate with European alternatives is that in 2019 was, in fact, let's go back to 2019. I'm doing this very quickly because I only just received the idea that I'm going to communicate with you about this. So in 2019 was the most successful economic year for our theatre in 25 years. We sold more tickets, we sold more drink and food. And then when the corona started in March and we were forced into lockdown, we weren't able to create our own capital. We then did is we then started a research into the other small cultural theatres in my country of Holland to see how we could create a platform of small organizations to be able to make some change in the dysfunctional budgeting system. Like in all, okay, at a certain point, we got involved with the European Cultural Fund. And then at the moment, we are creating a project called Making the Invisible Visible. We are trying to give power to the small institutions who are mostly invisible because, as you know, 95% of all cultural budgets in the municipalities in the big European capitals, 95% of all budget goes to big stone monuments of cultural art. Whichever country you're in, it's the same. And these small institutions are left with 5% to fight for. Often these small cultural institutions are doing the most essential work within the cultural geography of the municipalities. But they're, as usual, divide and rule is the rule. Now, I'm not just talking about the small theatres and the small institutions all over Europe. I am talking about them. I also think that we should bear in mind the situation that the live performance is actually like a social therapy. So what I'm talking about is that the idea is to stimulate and to create a platform of European institutions, small European institutions, who could then, in the first place, communicate on a digital level because of the corona, but then they could later empower themselves because of having a platform, and they would not be disenfranchised as they are now. In the major capitals, we've seen from our research, the smaller cultural initiatives are not represented at city council level. The national institutions support always the national institutions. So the fact that one speaks English doesn't mean that one's English. It's the language which the Polish, the Italians, the Spanish, French all communicate together because it's the language we have to communicate with. But they represent the different cultural groups. So we've set up this platform called Making the Invisible Visible with the European Cultural Fund, and I would really be interested in my contribution would be to stimulate and encourage, with obviously the European alternatives, to stimulate and encourage more interaction on a European level between the smaller community institutions, forcing people to exchange ideas, to confront problems, and to cooperate in the solutions. These are massive European ideals, and I think that we could do this, creating a live interaction on small community levels. Now, obviously I'm not going to go into it too long, but I would just like to say, after the research and after the contacts, we already have partners in different European capitals, and the two major partners are Dutch and Polish at the moment, but we are making our platform open so that we can empower and the disenfranchised and the small, because the big institutions will always have capital. They always have enough capital to get by. In fact, the small institutions haven't been given any chance with the emergency funding of the emergency corona funding doesn't reach the smaller institutions. It gets stuck with the big companies. So I would be very interested in continuing this discussion with anybody who sees ways of going forward to support the small cultural institutions all over Europe and to make the invisible visible, to make the small, who are now weak, strong. Thank you.